Welcome everyone to today's webinar on building donor loyalty. My name is Rachel Escobedo. I am the facilitator today, and our speaker is the wonderful Krista Berry Ortega. Let's get started. Let's take a look at our mission statement. Our mission is to help nonprofits significantly increase their fundraising capabilities and impact that they have in their communities and society through proven contemporary curriculum presented by world-class nonprofit leaders, best-in-class faculty, and renowned philanthropists. Quick shout out to our affiliate partners spanning all the way from California to New York. Thank you for joining us today, guys. We are happy to have you here. Our classes have already empowered nearly 27,000 nonprofit leaders. And here are some of our statistics. If you are joining us today and you are also on social media, this is our hashtag, SIPwebinar. Go ahead and give us a shout out. We would greatly appreciate you spreading the word. All right. So my name is Rachel Escobedo. I am the online ambassador for Sanford Harmony, and our speaker today is Krista Berry Ortega. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about Krista's background. Krista is a nonprofit consultant, trainer, and coach. She is recognized as an innovative leader and has over 15 years of diverse nonprofit experience from organizations in San Diego and New York City. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for having me, and hello, everybody across the country. Where are you guys joining us from? I know last time, you can feel free to submit via chat. I know last time we had folks from all around the country and a couple from another country, maybe London and Europe.
London, yeah.
So I know that you guys are joining us from all around the world. And we also want to know if you can submit via chat, what are you hoping to learn today? We are going to talk about one of the phases in cause selling, donor loyalty. But what else are you hoping to gain today from the webinar?
All right, we have a lot of people joining from San Diego.
Nice. Woo woo.
Arizona.
Arizona's in the house.
We have Hawaii.
All right. All the nice weather. Anyone from the cold weather?
Fort Lauderdale. Let's see. Oh, Canada.
Canada, it's cold.
That is cold. From Canada to West Palm Beach.
All right.
Salvation Army, Omaha.
Welcome.
Nebraska. St. Louis. Portland.
Welcome.
We've got all corners. Okay.
And what are you hoping to learn today? Why did you take this time to join us?
Someone says, how to sell our cause without coming across like I'm trying to sell.
Mm-hmm.
A new perspective on donor care.
Great.
And just a comment, Flagstaff is usually cold. I just want to learn more about donor continuity, how to maintain connections, and increase donations over time.
Fabulous. All right. Well, we're definitely going to cover that today. Feel free to keep chiming in and stay interactive. Anything that you want to submit, we will be reading, and hopefully by the end, either address or we can answer your questions. So as you know, our cause selling cycle model has multiple phases and different steps. Today, we're really going to be talking about phase 3 and step 8, which is the follow-up with results. Since many nonprofits receive the largest amount of donations at the year-end giving time, at the end of our year, this is the perfect time for all of us to be talking about donor loyalty and what follow-up with results towards, ultimately starting the cycle over, we want to be planning for. We should really always be doing follow-up with donors because hopefully you're getting donations all year long. But we felt like this is the perfect time of year in January to be talking about these strategies, how to sell the cause, and the best, hopefully maybe innovative ways that you might want to be planning for your follow-up this year. So a couple of truths about donor loyalty. Organizations are not entitled to donor loyalty. It's a process of continually re-earning it, which you all know. And we do it all the time, not just in January. Donor loyalty is not magic. Sorry. Can't just hire a magician. It's the result of hard work and preparation, and that's what everybody's doing around the country. I see it. I work with nonprofit organizations every day, and I feel like we're some of the hardest workers. And for those that are representing the affiliates, I know that you all are working very hard as well to run your programs and to help nonprofits. So we got to keep working hard, and we got to prepare and plan. And another truth about donor loyalty is you don't want to wait for the right time to cultivate donor loyalty. You do it all the time. You don't do it when you get the gift. You do it before you get the gift and every time in between. And then there's some cost to donor loss. Obviously, we are focused on donor loyalty, but there's some realities. The long-term donors that have been lost can impact the organization much more significantly. Gaining a new donor after a loss is not a one-to-one exchange, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen, and feel free to chime in on if this is resonating for you in the chat feature. The loss is not just felt that year, but it really is felt every year afterwards. And because we can have turnover within our organizations, we also feel that loss with the staff that might also lose the donor relationship as well. And we've all experienced that, I'm sure. So an important report that I recommend that you go and download is AFP and several other partners. They have an annual fundraising effectiveness survey that they put out. And this report has data and measurements. Basically, they collect this data from nonprofits and they put it together into a survey to better inform our planning. And this section of the effectiveness survey report talks about donor retention. And what we know is that 46% of donors who gave in 2014 gave again to the same organization the following year. So what does that say? That means that on average, 54%, which is more than the ones that gave, need to be replenished by either bringing lapsed donors into the picture or going out and acquiring new ones. So we've got more work to do on donor retention. Some other facts from AFP's fundraising effectiveness project is that 95% of the study donors stated that they would appreciate a thank you call within a day or two of the organization receiving their donation. Does anyone do that? I want to see if anyone does that. Are your organizations calling within a day or two of organizations receiving a donation? Yes, a lot of people are saying yes. Yay, awesome. What a difference that makes when you get that call, no matter how much you give. 85% said a thank you call would influence them to give again. So that's good. Keep doing it. 84% said they would give a larger gift than they were asked. So that's good news. And just kind of a fact around it that a 10% increase in donor retention can increase net donations by over 200% over a lifetime. So when you're building your annual plans, depending on if you're a calendar year or a fiscal year, really build that into your plan, that a 10% increase maybe in the business world might not feel aggressive, but you're looking at it for the long, sustainable picture for the organization and the lifetime of your relationship with the donor.
Krista, we have a question that just came in. This person's asking, when we send personalized thank you notes on the tax receipt. Does that count, or by call, do you mean phone?
Phone was what this project data was referring to, and we are going to talk a little bit about thank you letters and other communications. So I think I'll reserve my comments on how to improve that opportunity. Yes, you have to do the tax thank you letter. That's critical. But there are other ways that we can gain donor loyalty through other communications, and a phone call is what this is referring to. Just some tips to be able to download more of this report. They put it out every year. You can go to AFPFEP.org, and there's tools and reports on there. So it's AFP, and FEP stands for Fundraising Effectiveness Project. And we'll make sure to send that link out over chat as well.
We have just one more question that I think we should address now rather than later. So what about donors that don't give you a way to call them? No contact number, is a letter or email still as effective?
Excellent question. Yes, it can be, and it depends on where you are with your relationship with the donor. Ideally, if they've said that they don't want to be called, we want to honor that. But we also want to get them more engaged in the organization and with what we're doing so that we can have a more direct line to communicating what's going on and updating them on where their donation is going to. So a phone number might be something that you want to achieve over time in developing a closer relationship. But certainly if they don't want to be called, we want to support that, and there's other methods to reach out to them, which we're going to talk about. Thank you. Awesome questions. Keep them coming. So donor loyalty. It really needs to be an organization-wide cultivation project to learn more about the donor. Perfect segue. It can't just be the fundraiser that's their job and their title, right? It has to be an all hands-on mentality. It's definitely the CEO and the executive director. There's ways for that team to get the other staff in the organization involved in what donor loyalty means. A lot of times that can be working with your programs team to bring the donor to visit some of the impact face-to-face, or to put an annual report together that communicates what's happening in the field. And I think video is a great way to also get more folks involved in other parts of the organization and donor loyalty. And then also don't forget your volunteers. That's going to be an organization-wide process that they're going to be involved in too. So this nonprofit epidemic, if you will, informs us that Money for Good says that there's an estimated $25 billion that are not loyal to any organization and essentially up for grabs every year. So we have an opportunity that if we want more of that pie, if you will, it's 25 billion that aren't specifically loyal or might want to make a change, that it's less about seeing your job as a money seeker, if you will, the seeker of money or begging people for funds, but it's really about believing that what you're doing is engaging others to empower and share the impact that you love in your organization. And that if they're invited to the table and are feeling loyal to your organization, that they'll feel just as enthusiastic about the work as anyone that works there. So the question that you're all asking is, how do we do this? So the fact is that donors give more as a result of this long-term relationship that we have with organizations. So it's hard to really build donor loyalty in 1 year or 6 months. It's something that needs to be a part of a strategy long-term, beyond when potentially the staff might be there, and that's why it's important to have written plans. You want to find ways to meet the donor's growing expectations and to increase their level of engagement. So as you continue to get more familiar and build the relationship with the donor, they're going to want to continue to be more updated, and they're going to have more expectations around change and how your organization is growing. And I think there's also an opportunity to really focus on the fast-acting cultivation, that this bonding window for a first-time donor is 1 to 3 months of the initial gift. So if you had an annual year-end campaign in December and you have some goals of bringing in new donors, you're in this perfect bonding window right now in the middle of January to come up with a plan and a strategy to get them involved, follow up with a phone call, put together some email communications, and ultimately have a meeting so that you can get to know them and see why they were motivated to give. So remember, you have about 1 to 3 months of really bonding with those new donors to try to retain them. There are 3 keys to donor retention. And the first one is to really think like a donor. I'll ask everyone, is anyone on the call also a donor of an organization that you love? It's important that even if you've given $10 to a 5K run that your friend is doing, or given to an organization that you love, that you volunteer at and on the weekends, you're a donor too. So it's a perfect opportunity to get in the mindset of a donor and help yourself get to know them. What kind of communications do you want? How do you want to be treated when you get, email communications or after you send a gift? I know I'm not a major donor, I would say, but I give to a lot of organizations that I love. And I'm pretty shocked. I was just thinking about it this morning that I gave some dollars that over the holiday season to some new organizations that I had never donated to, and I still haven't heard from them at all. And I get it. I didn't give $1 million, not yet. But just that letter that someone brought up earlier with the tax, information is a good start. And so I think that to really put yourself in the shoes of the donor, and how would you want to be, communicated to, and how would you want that relationship to be developed? And I'm seeing that other people are saying, yes, they're donors, and you have that experience as well that you want to draw upon and bring up in meetings when you're planning.
And Krista, one person gives to her organization and sits on the board of 2 others. Another person says, yes, I'm a donor. It does help to think about what organizations do as a good job and what they like to do.
Perfect opportunity. And this is a great time of year. Yes, we're busy. We're always busy in the nonprofit sector. I just feel like this is a great time of year to take this reflection time and go, what did I like? Or, on the positive side, right? Like, what did I like about another organization that communicated with me over the last year? And what was that? So something to really think about and reflect on, and talk about it either in your committee meetings or in the office as you're planning moving forward. The second key is to say thank you like you mean it, right? We all know that you need to say thank you. But when you kind of get that, they were just saying thank you because they had to, or if you're like, wow, they really meant this. It's important for it to be personal and to be personalized, right? It's not just a customized form letter, but is there a way that you can handwrite a smiley face and a note on your stack of thank you letters that are going out to everyone? It might be a lot, but gosh, if that's your main time to get donations at the end of the year, take the time to write a little personal note. Hi, Debbie, thanks so much for thinking of us. Looking forward to grabbing coffee with you soon in January. So it's really saying thank you like you mean it. And that really comes from your heart. Here's the tip that I wanted to share with you on some exceptional thank you letter best practices. Prompt is critical, right? If I just gave a donation, I haven't heard from someone in a month, it'll be nice to get it a couple months, but it's not timely. I kind of was like, I forgot. So send the letter as soon as you receive the gift. I know for organizations that I've worked in, we've had a 24-hour timeline on when to get letters out. And ideally, if you can do it in less than that, then that's ideal. So even though you're busy, this is an important step that you kind of want to stop and make sure it gets done in your organization, because prompt is critical for thanking people. Personalize, as we spoke about. You want to ensure that you're writing directly to the donor, right? And reference their specific gift. There are ways that we can mail merge into the letter and say your gift of this amount went to this fund or to this program or to this initiative. But there might be other ways that you want to personalize it to let them know that you went and met one of the students that received some of the scholarship money and they were just so happy and smiling and they thank you so much. Or is there a picture, a selfie of you and some of the folks that are being impacted by the program, or animals, or whoever that might be, that you can send, or if you have their phone number, text. So really personalize what they like. Passionate is critical. I really haven't met too many nonprofit employees or volunteers that aren't passionate about what they do, but it's critical to remember to convey that gratitude and explain how the funds will be used as well. I was home over the holidays and a friend of mine was talking about how their school band has been doing a really awesome job of raising money for this program, and the kids are going to go to Florida. I don't know exactly where they're going, but this mom was kind of concerned because they've been fundraising for 3 years and they never really knew where exactly the funds are going. They just know that they have to continue to raise more funds every year. So it can happen on such a micro level that all donors and all people that are involved really just want to know where those funds are going, and it's an easy way to convey that gratitude by expressing that to them. And then being positive. Make your donors smile. feel glad that they gave, and then make them feel proud of the organization they're a part of so that they do have some loyalty towards you, that they can't even imagine not being a donor for your organization because they feel so proud of it. And the third key is to treat everyone like a major donor. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but we have to remind ourselves of this. And I think the best way to focus on this is to practice with your board members and your coworkers and your volunteers. If you're only following up with these big donors that are giving you millions of dollars, then some of these small customers aren't being engaged, and they might be the ones that are going to be your $1 million donor later, right? And we talk about the different age groups that are donors and how we need to be cultivating the next generation. Well, this is the perfect strategy to do that. You just treat everyone like a major donor. And truly, think about your board, or if you're on a board, the staff people, or if you're in a big development office, how can you practice with the rest of the people in the organization and your team? So really that portfolio of assets that you have are all of your donors, and that all of those donations together equal how you're being successful in creating impact. So don't forget the little guys like me, but truly creating a relationship where you're treating everyone like a major donor is critical. So maximizing your current donors, I know that we wanted to talk about that. Some ways that we can do that is through referrals. Loyal donors of your organization encourage others to support your cause over and over. I see it all the time at events, that they'll be inviting their friends. You have to come and meet these people that run this great organization and get more involved, and then they tip it over to you. Retention. Donors who continue to give provide a solid base for success. So retaining your donors is a great achievement. And a lot of times in fundraising plans and organizations that I work with, it's always about growth. And while growth is important, growth is also, being aware that you have to kind of bring in new donors. Well, what's that goal for retention? If you can retain the same amount of donors at the same level and have growth through those donors and retention, that's ultimately a more sustainable plan. And reputation. Loyal donors speak well of you to others. It's so important. Even if something happens and a communication goes out and there's an error in it, or I don't know what that situation could be, but you never know. Sometimes the donor might be unhappy about a program changing and it not being the way it used to be. Talk to them. Let them know that you want their feedback. Let them know where the direction is going, because they're going to go and talk to others. And they're in those circles that you want them to speak well of you. So reputation for your nonprofit and also the relationship the donors have with you is critical. And then obviously revenue, right? Loyal donors give you more of what you need. And we need money. We need money in order to function. And it's critical that we are grateful for them. So has anyone experienced a loyal donor referring someone to you? Has anyone had that experience at your organization? Feel free to submit that in the chat.
So we do have one question. Yeah. She's asking, what are donors looking for in return?
What are donors looking for in return? In return for their gift?
Mary, if you could clarify your question, yeah. I'll go ahead and read that out.
I think it's a good question. I just think it's hard to answer because it's really based on the relationship. So it all goes back to having that relationship with your donor and understanding. I mean, that would be my recommendation, is ask them. If they're saying, I want something in return, then you really want to make sure that you're asking if what that is for them, and if that's something that you can even fulfill, right? Usually donors want to be involved in the mission. They want to support the mission, and they want to be in regular communication. So it might be they want to be more involved on a committee. It might be they want regular communications from you on how the program is being successful. So it's hard to really answer that, other than I think the answer is go back and ask them, and it gives you an opportunity to really develop that relationship with them. Some other ways that we can maximize current donors are to get them involved, as I just said. You want to really increase their level of involvement so that they can speak more directly about what you're doing. You can encourage them to become volunteers Or a lot of times we see volunteers that actually become our donors. And so it can go both ways. Don't forget all of the stakeholders that are involved in your organization, because if you think about it, volunteers that are interacting with your organization on a regular basis, they know your mission very well and have a story around why it's important and are the perfect opportunity to become a loyal donor if asked and engaged. And then I think the most important tip on this is that I hear a lot, don't go out and create a volunteer opportunity for your donors, because now you're just creating something that might not fit a goal. But really identify with the team, what are the opportunities that donors can get more involved, that already exist, that are contributing to a goal. Because I know for me, I've been on many board of directors over the years, and I never want what my time is going to in terms of volunteer or funds to be something that's just to, make me happy, if you will. I want to be able to come to something that is part of the goal and to be contributing in that way. And even if it's stuffing envelopes or signing letters or calling other donors to say thank you for your gift, that's a great way that current donors can be more involved. And I always suggest doing a kind of, I call it a thankathon, where you get volunteers or other donors and staff involved in thanking all of your donors from 2017. It's the thankathon, I know it's a little geeky, but it's a perfect opportunity this time of year to call them if you don't have a phone number, find a cool communication. One year at an organization that I worked with, we did a thank you video that we sent out to everyone and we personalized it. So that took a little bit of time, but it was super fun. You can use social media. One of these ways that you're increasing their level of involvement. And obviously you want to close the loop, right? You want to make sure that donors know the results of their giving. I think that would be the only other way I'd answer that question that was asked is, what are they looking in for return? They want to know what their investment went to. That's really important. We all do. We want to make sure that, well, if I gave a bunch of money to, the school band, that they're going to be able to go to this, competition in another state because of that, or they got a bus to go to a special practice or see a special concert. What is that? What is it that you are creating for them? So obviously we do use email a lot. So it's important that we focus on a powerful email and how important an email is. And I think this is pretty standard, but it's good to be reminded that before you just send out an email, specifically as a donor loyalty touch, that it should have a catchy subject line. You want to read it, right? Open rates are important. So something that's going to get donors and your stakeholders to open it up. You want to make them feel like the star and that they were important to your organization. If you can, at all costs, you want to report specific results. So this is a great opportunity this time of year, if you haven't done it already, to see how much money you raised in your year-end campaign and let donors know. Let donors know that after all these communications they got over the last 3 months, that you needed to raise X amount of dollars by December 31st, that this is how far you came because of them. And specifically, what is that going to go towards? Is that a specific program that you're going to support? Are you starting a new initiative? Is it covering annual operations that are really important? So be specific with the results. I've said it before, photos are important. They feel connected. If we're in a busy world now where we can't always come into the office and physically see the impact. So photos are a great way to show how important it is, even if it's just a photo of you and your team, the development staff, saying, hey, thank you so much for your gift. And links to your website and ways to get more involved. Do you need more committee members for an upcoming event? Are you doing a clothing drive for a certain program and you need them to help out? What are the ways that they can be more involved? Don't ask them for money right now, unless you have a specific campaign going. It's a great time to thank people. And then winning back lapsed donors. We know from the statistics that it's inevitable. We have to do it, but it's really important to get them back into the organization if you can. If a donor gives one time but never gives again, then something likely has gone wrong. If you're inheriting a program from other staff that had a relationship with them and you're not seeing that donor is giving, it's a great opportunity to try to call or reach out to them and say that you really just want their feedback. why did they give before, and if they don't mind sharing, why don't they feel like they want to give now? It's important to really understand that and let them know that you genuinely want to know because you want to improve. The organization wants to improve, and as a fundraiser, you get a chance to improve as well, even if you are a volunteer. Donors rely on their emotional experiences with fundraisers to keep them loyal. So it's not just a transaction. It's not just we're asking you for money and in exchange you're going to get this letter for your taxes. That's a part of it, but they really want a relationship with you. So some of my best, strongest relationships with my donors, I was able to text them. They felt comfortable giving me their phone number because they knew that there was trust and a relationship beyond just me asking them for money. I hear a lot of times with donors that I interview for some of the work that I do with organizations that they want them to come and have lunch with them and update them on how things are going and not make an ask all the time. And while we know that that's challenging with limited resources, it's really critical for winning back lapsed donors and for retaining current donors. That should be your main focus, and the acquisition and bringing on new donors should be, the second priority, if you will. Ideally both at the same time, but if you have to choose, retaining. And some important steps to take with winning them back are to really concentrate your efforts, right? Remind them of their why, if you know it, or ask them, why do you donate? What was it about the organization that motivated you to donate a few years ago? Why aren't you donating now? And this kind of shake up your email list is a good opportunity to just, how are you communicating with them? Is it the same communications? Do they look the same? Is there a way that you can refresh your communications with them and really more personalized? If they're just getting the standard emails that go out to everyone on the listserv, they're probably not feeling a connection to you or an individual in the organization. So calls or more personalized emails that aren't as pretty or snazzily designed sometimes feel a little more personal. So a plan for tracking follow-up, because we're talking about follow-up in the cause selling cycle. Start a best donors list. I'm sure a lot of you already have these, but selecting a manageable numbers of your best donors, and then ideally you want to code them in your database. But if you're not working out of a database, then you probably have an Excel file or something like that that you want to track and make sure that you're keeping up with all the communications and engagement you have with them. The donor base is really the best way to track all this stuff, because these donor bases, these databases, they are set up to track emails, to track newsletters, to track thank you letters, to say they're on a committee, and you can really see this snapshot of who your best donors are, and we kind of call those your prospect list. You also want a file for each donor. Back in the day, that might have been a physical file that you put in the file cabinet. You might still have those of donors, but it's also important to have an electronic file of all the communications that you've sent to them and information that you know that they like, right? Potentially research that you've done on other organizations they give to. And a lot of your databases can track all of this by creating plans in your databases for each donor. And it's really a critical use of your time so that you can track your follow-up. And sometimes I forget, So the database is a nice thing to keep me on track and send alerts. Identifying partners to find centers of influence that you have in common is a great plan for follow-up. This is how you want to utilize your other donors or your volunteers and get them more engaged in helping others. If you know who this list is and what the strategy is, okay, this donor just ups their donation at the end of the year because they knew it was important to us moving into 2018. Who else on the board or the committee has a relationship with them? They invite the donor to a coffee meeting, and now you get to establish that relationship. So any of those common partners are important to know about the donor to gain trust and really continue the follow-up. And then obviously talk to the influencers, right? You want to consult with these influencers about the donor and record any findings. It's just so critical that you're tracking all of this as much as possible so that if there is a staff change or if something does happen in the program, so the donor doesn't feel like their relationship with the organization has changed just because you've left or something else has changed in the organization. I do think that it impacts retention when we lose staff. So it's important to track everything, archive everything that you have on the donor for the organization. 6, you want to pick a contact within your organization, ideally, that's going to be the relationship manager. That's important. And it takes some strategy and planning, and it's a process, but it's important to have one person that's going to be that key relationship manager that's going to be, communicating on a regular basis, and that is it's their list to really track and make sure that the follow-up is being managed and ahead of time. You want to develop a targeted strategy for donors based on their needs. So this is not something that you want to do in a room by yourself. This is something that you bring all those influencers in, you bring all those partners together, you bring all the data that you've collected on the history of the relationship that you have with the donor, and you sit in the room with all your partners and you say, what's the right strategy for our next step? They just gave more at the year end online. This is a great opportunity for us to get a meeting, maybe bring the board president in, maybe bring the CEO in, and ask them how they'd like to be involved moving forward, and develop that strategy for how you're going to continue to ultimately plan for the ask, right? Plan a year ahead. You want your moves for the next year with each donor to be established with objectives for the year. So if you haven't done that for some of these top prospects, this is the perfect time to do that for the rest of the year. And remember, it's not always an ask, ask, ask. It's a developing the relationship, building loyalty, seeing what they're interested in, and as a team, you'll know when it's time for the right ask. And then review and revise. So you want to record and review your results, and you want to refine your strategy as needed. This isn't a transaction, this is a relationship. So you can check in with the donor. How's this feeling to you? Is this something that you're interested in moving forward on? Is there other ways that you'd like to be involved that we haven't thought of? So I think that that's critical. And I just want to add, too, before we have a question, that next month we'll do a more updated piece on what next month's webinar is, but next month we are going to be talking about using your database to dig for donors. So I think that it's a perfect time to say, come back next month and figure out if you're not using your database to plan for this tracking and follow-up. And then next month you'll get a lot more information on specifically how to do that from our presenter.
Krista, we have one question regarding this. Do you have a recommendation on the best place to track donor information? I don't know if she's recommending.
Yeah, there's a lot of great databases out there. I'll put it back to the group. Chime in on what database you use, and we'll shout out a list to you guys. There's so many great databases out there. I know I've used Salesforce before, but I don't think that that's the best solution for all organizations. I know Donor Perfect exists. I'll pause before doing a large list, and we'll collect what everyone else is using. Ideally today, not Excel. Ideally, you want to budget in a strategy to use a database because it's just so sophisticated and helps put you on target for managing all these contacts. And like I said, next month, our presenter might have some recommendations as well. So I hope you join us next month to get more information on databases as well. Great question. We'll update you in a minute when we see everyone else's responses. So, really, a plan for tracking follow-up is to contact donors regularly. It's critical. It makes sense, but it's so hard. We get so busy that it's like, oh my gosh, was the last time they got an email from us in December when we were asking them for money? Now it's already January 17th. So information about new programs is a great way to contact them. What are your goals for 2018? What has changed from 2017 to 2018 in your mission? Is it more critical now, depending on what's going on in the kind of global environment? Annual reports are a great thing to have in your plan. I've always tried to get my annual reports done in January so that I can follow up after the year-end giving campaign and say, this is what we did last year, thanks to you. In-house newsletters, if you're doing them, great. Make sure that all of your donors are getting them, and sometimes they don't want to be on the newsletter subscribe list, but I always had my group of donors that wanted those newsletters that I would forward specifically to them. That's how you can personalize it, is you get the newsletter in your box, you forward it specifically. Hi, Rachel, knew that you want to read our newsletter. Hope you're having a great 2018 so far. Let me know if you want to grab tea sometime. A letter with a self-addressed reply card is a strategy. And or putting a letter together if you don't have a phone number, you think this is the right approach with your donor, to suggest a meeting time. You could put a letter together and say, I'd love to get together with you and talk with you more about how you'd like to be involved and what we're up to in 2018. Here are some of my availabilities. Please let me know in this way when you'd like to get together. And we've said it, photos that reveal your organization's impact. It's just such a great way to be in communication with donors, even if that's it. Even if you just send them a photo of like, hey, I was out in the field today and I thought of you, boom. I think that would make me happy. So again, how are you going to contact your donors? Think about what that might mean to you. And then obviously listen to what they're telling you as well. Yeah, any organization dates, and I think I said it before too, how does the year-end giving campaign work? Or what was your last communication to them? And have that be the follow-up email or call or reason for the call. So remember, gaining a new donor costs up to 5 times more than keeping a current one. It is so important that we spend this time, go back to your list. That's why, again, next month we're going to talk about digging for your donors and going back to the donors that you already know and already have contact information for, and maximize them and have them help you to introduce you to new people, because they're going to be your greatest champions. So don't get stressed out about having to bring in new donors. Use your current donors as your bread and butter, right? As your impact. The final thought I'll leave you with, and then we're going to do some additional Q&A, is some strategies for increasing donor loyalty that, just to recap, are organizational site visits. You can invite them to come and have a site visit. Is it something that you want to do every once in a while, or do you want to maybe start a program in 2018 where you have a monthly tour of your program that people can sign up for? Maybe that's how you communicate with them, is telling them that they can come for a site visit. Can you visit them? It's a great opportunity to be able to come to them. A lot of donors like that, especially I know in San Diego, we're so spread out that having to drive far and park and things like that might be just a little too much, but can you go to them? Make it convenient for them. Regular contact, as we spoke about, being of service to the donor. So if they are a corporate donor and they have a need for a partnership, as long as it fits in with your mission, can you connect them to people that are going to help them achieve their goals? You don't want to be spending your time just doing someone else's work, but if it's something that complements what you're doing, it's a great opportunity to be of service to the donor. Engage the donor within the organization, as we spoke about, and gratitude and recognition always. And so I recommend, here's my activity that I'll leave you with. I recommend taking this list of donor loyalty strategies, bring it back to your team, either your development committee, your development team, or if you're a small organization, your whole office, include some volunteers and brainstorm for each one of these strategies what that specific activity will be for you in 2018. How are you going to use organizational site visits to be a strategy for your donors? And go through each one and come up with a very detailed list of ways that you can include them, so then when you are calling a donor, you have a really concrete list of how you as an organization can increase their loyalty.
Thank you so much, Krista. Wow, you certainly provided us, your listeners and myself, with a wealth of strategies to use, a lot of takeaways, and the chat box was blowing up with engagement.
Yay!
Yes, so thank you everyone for engaging with your fellow peers, giving us some strategies that you used. And let's go right to the questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat box. We did have some from earlier that we're going to go ahead and address. One that I see here immediately is any suggestions for some best practices for donor relationship management for a nationwide nonprofit with a 90% increase of donations coming from small contributions.
Wow, awesome. Well, congratulations, first of all. That's fantastic. Yeah, it is a little harder, right, when you can't just go visit the donor down the street to have national relationships. I do think email communications, as we spoke about, and using the phone can be really powerful in developing relationships with them now, currently. And frankly, if you have some donors that once you kind of mine that list, because 92% is amazing and you might not be able to get to everyone top priority, who are folks that you can frankly go to them? Hey, I'm going to be in whatever city they live in next week. Could we get together and have coffee? I'd like to learn more about how you want to be involved. So ultimately, with a national reach, you might want to start putting a plan and a budget together on how someone from the organization will want to reach out to them and get a face-to-face meeting. I think the other opportunity to bring them to you is if you have an event coming up that you think they would be interested in, if you invite them to come to you and say, this is going to be a special event, maybe there's even a special feature of, it's a donor club or some sort of society that they're all in so that they can meet each other and it's a networking opportunity. Make it even extra special for them to come to this event that's coming up. Then that can also help folks travel and have a special reason to come and visit you. And you get that face-to-face time to develop that relationship with them.
Thank you, Krista. One person is asking for the link that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
No, I can write it.
It was ASP, where is it? ASPFES.
ASPFES.
Let's make sure. Well, can we write it in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to write it in the chat right now. I'm pulling it up. You guys ask me another question.
All right.
ASPFEP.org.
.org.
So it's AFP, Association for Fundraising Professionals, and FEP stands for Fundraising Effectiveness Project. So many great tools. You can download the full report, and there's so many great tools on there to help you. I mean, you can really get into the data if you want to help you, frankly, plan for revenue, like help you plan your budget.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Krista. So how to tap into the investor's interest if your nonprofit is not of their typical interest?
Interesting. I mean, my first question is, why are they donating? If your nonprofit isn't that investor's interest. So I would just on a discovery level want to know that. Ultimately, you want investors and donors to love what you do and be just as passionate as you are and everyone else that's involved. So that is a really key part of the match, and I think we've talked about that and we'll continue to do that in upcoming topics around how you kind of perfect that pitch and have it be what their interests are. That would be where I'd start with that. Why are they donating if it's not really potentially what their interests are? And then is there an donors that love the work that you do and feel really good about talking about it to others?
Yeah, makes sense. All right, this is a question from earlier. Is it best to have your nonprofit event at the end of the year due to end of tax season claims?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think it's up to you guys in terms of the right strategy for your organization and seeing for the whole year, what do you need to get done? I don't know. Maybe some folks, feel free to chime in to the chat. Maybe some folks have had more success doing an event at that time of year because it does get people in the mood. I think that that's what happens is around the holidays, people just tend to get into the giving mood. So if that fits into your strategy, I don't see why that would be a bad idea, but that doesn't always work. I know that it's a very busy time for people too. So being aware that they might not be able to come even though they're in a giving mood. So my greatest, suggestion on that is, your people, ask your donors that question, ask your volunteers. You could even do a survey asking people, hey, we're kind of like revisioning our events. What would that look like for you? It really needs to be right for your people versus us being able to know. who your people are. Any feedback? No? Okay. Yeah. You're gonna know based on your relationship. So I would ask a couple of key donors what they think about that.
Okay.
You can even do a smaller event. Like I always did a holiday tea for a little group of some of it's an organization that I used to work at here in San Diego. They were friends of the founder. And so we had our little society of the founder's friends, and we just did a holiday tea, and it was just such a nice time to bring people together. We raised some money, but that's not why we did it. We really did it for stewardship. It was just a nice time to get together, and they enjoyed us bringing them all together. So, you have to really know what the goal is for the event to make sure that it's that it's successful for you.
Thank you, Krista. So you had mentioned to follow up with donors with donors the results of the campaign. Do you recommend follow-up from a year-end email to all of those emailed or just to those who donated?
That's a great question. It could be both. Maybe it's two communications. I feel personally that even if folks didn't give, if they were receiving a lot of communications on what you were doing in a campaign, it would be a great touch to let them know how it did. Because there is something to be said for donors or potential donors knowing what other donors are doing. So you can think about, as you're designing your communications, sharing stories of what other donors have done, perfect thing for a newsletter to feature a donor either every month or every quarter or at least once a year and share what they've done, because it inspires others to give. And then with this question in mind, I don't think it hurts to just kind of let them know that based on other donors' feedback, this is what was successful. And then maybe you want to have a more personalized email to the ones that did give, thanking them on a more direct level for where their donation is going. So I would do both. You really can't thank people and communicate with them enough. Let them tell you, yo, you're thanking me too much. Stop it.
I love it.
I've never heard that before.
Okay, we've had a couple questions about this. Any suggestions about communicating with donors about the new federal tax law's impact?
That is a good question for another day. And we've been talking about how that's important. I'm not going to go there because it's really not my area of expertise. And we know that there are folks in your community that have that as an expertise. I will tell you that our ASP here in San Diego, and I'm hearing around the country, are doing a great job of pulling together experts for that conversation together. So my first suggestion would be to look online, and we're figuring out how we can address that for you guys as well. And second, go to your local ASP chapter and see if they have an upcoming program or if there's more information on ASP around how you might want to approach that with your donors. Good question.
Thank you. So how can we manage our efforts given we have some peer-to-peer at the end of the year? How do we decide how to manage additional dual efforts?
Say it again. Peer-to-peer. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, this is from Raja. Raja, if you could clarify what you mean, I guess, by peer-to-peer, we'll definitely address that for you.
Yeah, the only thing I can address is that if you're doing like a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign using like a software where you're asking others to fundraise for you, I don't know what the question was. How do you address that? I mean, it's a great opportunity. You want a software that you can have access to everyone's contact information so that you can thank them, right? So there's a software that was created here in San Diego that I've always used and I'm a big fan of. They're called classy.org, and the organization, isn't that cool? The organization has the software, and you provide the software to your donors and supporters to use. It's branded the way that you want it to be, and you provide that to them to use for peer-to-peer fundraising opportunities. So you're kind of giving them tools to manage that, and therefore now you can log in and say, here are all the emails of the people that gave or that volunteered to fundraise for us so that we can reach out to them and thank them. So that's the important piece, is you know how to thank all these people. You don't necessarily want someone creating their own fundraising page And I mean, great if they want to send you a check, but there's really no way that you get to cultivate that relationship and build donor loyalty if you don't know how to contact them. I hope that answered the question, or somewhat.
His response was end-of-year campaigns using Classy and trying to stay clear end-of-year giving efforts. At times, you lean on current donors to help drive awareness and funds.
Totally, yeah. It's a great way to build loyalty with donors, to use this peer-to-peer function. I think that's my biggest piece, is using Classy as an organization, invest in the software so that you can make it look the way you want, and therefore you can communicate. You can thank the peers that are putting the word out there to their networks and fundraising. Maybe you want to come up with either incentives for them to reach their goal, or a different level of thank you gift for ones that have raised a lot of money online. Is there like a reception or something like that that all of your fundraisers come to right now in February, like show me the love, and you're thanking them, or something around Valentine's Day? And then you do want to make sure that they're thanking them online on the social aspect, but you're going ahead and treating each one of those people that donated through that system as a donor yourself. And to me, that's a great acquisition opportunity for new donors if you have a donor loyalty plan in place.
Thank you. So we do have 2 minutes left of today's webinar, but I do want to I would love Chris to answer 2 more questions. This one should be a short answer. Will you be addressing the first part of the donation cycle, prospect, pre-approach, in a future presentation, or is this presentation accessible online?
Oh, great question. Yeah, we're putting together the updated webinar schedule right now, and I think that that's an excellent topic, and to be continued. Stay tuned. Yes, why not? And we will also look through our archives and see how we can make, I know that you can go to our website currently and get all past webinars. So off the top of my head, I cannot think if that was one of the presentations off the top of my head, but you can definitely go back and see pre-recorded sessions on our website.
Great, thank you. And our last question, this is a good one. I find myself having a very well-known philanthropist attend my event every year, but does not donate. I think this person has fun at the event, but the purpose may not resonate with that individual. How do I tackle this?
It's a great question, and you're right. It might just be they have a great time at the event and they come through other friends, and that might be where it ends, but I think a strategy in place is critical. So I would start by assembling those influencers that we talked about, and you guys are going to get a copy of this presentation so you can kind of go back and look at it and share it with your team. But assembling those partners and influencers that you've either seen that person with at the event, or that has invited that person to the event, or that might know them. Sometimes I just go around and go, hey, did you know this person? Like, I have like my top 3 people or something that I want to reach out to, and I just ask everyone I know, do you have a contact or a relationship with this person? So get some influencers and folks that know that person better, and get some kind of intel on it. Like, is this an area that they might want to get more involved in? Can they help you get a meeting with them? It's always best to sit down face to face. Bring a CEO or a board member, someone that, you know, is at the kind of organizational level that you think matches where the donor's interest might be. And then do some research. Google has been awesome. There's a lot of great prospect research softwares out there that we've talked about before in other webinars, but you can start with a good Google search. Where has this person donated before? Are you seeing any information that indicates that what your mission is would be a good match, and that you'd want to have them be more involved after the next time they come to the event? So yeah, reach out to others, do some research on your own, and work it. Work the strategy, why not? Find a way to have a board member or someone the next time they come to that event, kind of take them aside and say, thank you so much for coming. Would you like to sit down with us and talk more about our organization and how you'd like to be involved?
Well, thank you so much, Krista. That's the last of our questions. We're going to let you guys go. But just a quick reminder, our next webinar will be on February 28th, Digging for Donors. Is that the title?
That's the title.
Do you want to share anything quickly about that?
No, I think it's going to be a great follow-up to this conversation on how you can really maximize your donor base, of your donor base. I should rename that. The database with your donors, and how to find these donors that already exist in your database and how to basically create a plan around it. So I look forward to having you guys come back.
Thank you, Krista. You've been wonderful, given us a lot to chew on, and thank you all for attending today. Thank you for participating in the chat. We look forward to meeting you next time. Have a great rest of your day.